Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. We are live here in a undisclosed area in Southern California. We're joined by Jeff Goin, who just got off the airplane and literally parachuted in to be on the show tonight.
Well, maybe not just, but there is an interesting story about it.
Yeah, please tell.
We were at a show for light sport aircraft, and there was a powered paraglider representative there. And there was a little gathering for the media afterwards. And I had flown, a friend of mine and I had flown over to the show. So that meant we have to fly back. I don't do night.
Oh,
Not a fan of flying at night. Where do you go if the motor quits?
yeah.
Right? Bend over, kiss it. Yeah, you know that story. So it was dark enough when we finally came in, and I made an approach to our field here, which is a fairly short, it's a 2,000-foot grass field at the house. And I couldn't even see the lake. There's a lake at the south end. Couldn't even see the lake, so we just pressed on and went to a little airport that has lights. Landed
Nice.
there. And
Okay.
got a ride back.
With the paramotor.
No. This was all in a 4-place airplane, the Bonanza.
Okay.
I was going to say 2,000 feet for a paramotor is pretty good, Jeff.
Yeah, right. If you can't land in a 2,000-foot, 100-foot wide runway, maybe it's time for extra training.
Well, you're joined tonight.
Say, I fly out of Gator. We have 2,000 feet. I'm like, Jeff can't make a 2,000-foot runway.
Yeah, he needs a little remedial.
I'm glad that you all made it tonight. You're joined by Larry, who runs paraorangeproducts.com. Check out the website for all your paramotoring gear. And Sean is moderating tonight. Say hi to Sean. If you don't know Jeff Goin is a pioneer of the sport, has excellence in all things flying, including, did you hang glide too? I didn't mention that last time. Hang glide?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I have about 50 hang glider flights.
Okay, so hang gliding, paragliding, paramotoring, flies commercial aircraft, flies helicopters, and probably would fly whatever ultralight you got as well. Just give him a shot. I'm sure he's got some kind of flying ability to make it fly. But he's with us tonight. He also wrote the book, The PPG Bible, and has been a pioneer of the safety aspect of the sports. You're the president of I always forget the organization for it's
U.S. Powered Paragliding Association.
right. U.S. Powered Paragliding Association. So
don't feel bad, by the way, Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
William Shatner, he struggled with that too.
Did he?
I have the outtakes from William Shatner's part on Risk and Reward, and it was funny to see him U.S. powered paragliding, and he had to do it about 4 times. So you're in good company.
Okay, good, because I didn't write it down, and I probably should have wrote that down. But anyways, we don't need to legitimize who this man is, and I count it such a privilege that he would join us tonight. The reason why Phil Russman isn't here as well is because he was flying just a few minutes ago. He called me from the air. He was 5,000 feet above sea level, and he was within glide to my house from our favorite spot. And so he called me, he says, "Robert," and I'm like, "What, Phil? What are you in the air?" And he goes, "Yeah, where's your house?" I'm like, "Oh no, he's going to fly to the house." So he shot me, took a picture, and he texted me the picture all while he's flying. And so I put a dot on my house and I sent it back to him, and I said, "Yeah, you could totally make it. No problem at all." He was, so anyways, he's packing up his gear right now. I sent him an invite. We'll see if we can get him to come join.
Good deal. That's Phil.
Isn't
Always
that
making
hilarious?
people jealous. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So he told me that he couldn't make the show, right? And so I was like, "Oh, okay. He's probably got work, doing some important stuff." And this was a few days ago. It was before we knew what the weather was going to look like. And so I think we may do a prank call in a little while.
Perfect.
So let's do the order of business. This show is sponsored by paraorangeproducts.com. That's why Larry's here. And really appreciate Larry. And he calls Chris, his wife, the bag lady. They are the greatest people so far that I've met in the para products business. And they have sponsored the show. And they do that through Patreon. Supporting the show on there. I want to encourage everybody, if you're a part of the show, if you're interested in keeping this show going and making it worth our while, please support the show financially for the price of a cup of coffee. You can maybe learn something that's going to save your life or save your friend's life. And it's worth it. It's worth the conversation. Even if you only get one little thing out of every show, it's worth it. And so anyways, I do want to say Para Orange Products, go check them out. You can go to paraorangeproducts.com, check out their website. They sent me some cards and they sent me a windsock. And in there, I thought this was interesting. I said I was going to read this. It says, bringing you quality products for paramotoring and paragliding sports. So talk to Larry. If you have any questions, reach out to him in the comments. And if you're watching this show after it's aired live, you can always still comment and I'll get back to you. I'm pretty on top of all the comments. And so without further delay, Jeff Goin, you are here and you're a madman. You were just at a fly-in right now.
Yeah, it's the DeLand Light Sport Expo, and it was interesting because I did just watch, I think, about 15 parachuters. The Qatari parachute team landed right next to where we were having our food. It was pretty cool. And I mean, a parachute is obviously very much like ours. I mean, they get some speed up. It's almost like a speed wing because it kind of is a speed wing. Get some speed up, flare, do a long slide along the grass. It's like, yeah, that looks familiar and fun.
Yeah. You want to try it?
I have done 2 tandems. One was a full-on training flight where this was a guy who helped me fly the helicopter down from Chicago to Florida. That had a little bit of drama on its own, including sitting out in a field while it was raining for a couple hours. But he was a skydiving instructor, and he's a paraglider pilot. And he took me up for a tandem and gave me a lesson about, okay, you're going to do everything. You're going to pull the pilot chute. You're going to be looking at the altimeter and just going through everything. So that was a lot of fun. And then I did another one where I was basically a passenger, even though I flew it. And a parachute, flying a parachute, it's way different. I can see why experienced parachutist could be an instructor's nightmare. Ooh. If they don't get that you got to treat a paraglider differently, it could be a problem because they're used to grabbing handfuls of brake, a lot of brake. You can get away with it. So try that in a paraglider. On kind of a related note, a couple of weeks ago, we were out there in Northern California or Central Northern California at Marina. And that dune there at Marina, oh, it's just amazing. That's some of my favorite kind of flying up there.
Is that Sand City?
Yeah, it's just north of Sand City. There's a launch at Sand City, and then there's another launch north of it. That's another story.
Interesting. So you went down there and did some sand flying?
Yes. And sand flying is really cool because so this is how good the community is. There is a fella out there by the name of Alex. And so Tim and I are sitting in the motorhome. We're about to go up the hill because we're on the back side of the dune. We're about to go up the hill, and Tim says, hey, another paraglider pilot just showed up. Cool. So I go out there and say, hey, yeah, we're going to go up the hill in a few minutes. Unfortunately, I've only got my small wing, and it's not very strong right now. And he said, well, I have a 24-meter gradient C wing. I don't even remember the name of it. It's like, wow, that's really generous. I mean, you didn't know who I am from Adam. And he said, yeah, you can use that. I've got a new D wing. It's like, oh, you got a death rag. Cool. Those are fun. Phil loves the death rags. So if we could get Phil on here, talk about the death rags. So I took him up on that. We went up the hill and we were up there for probably an hour. I was ready to call it quits. And Alex said, well, you know what? I've driven 2 hours down from San Francisco. I'm not ready yet. I didn't want to make Alex carry his wing down. So I figured, all right, well, I'll hang out. It's a beautiful place to be hanging out.
Yeah.
Then the wind started picking up.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's cool. It's a sucker wind. You know, it's going to die. So he gets the death rag out, and lo and behold, he almost stays up. He did sink out, but, you know, he got a couple passes down the ridge. And then I figure, well, what the heck? And then he kited back up the hill, which on a death rag, that's a little difficult. Those are a little challenging to kite. Good for Alex. So I figured, well, if you can kite up the hill, I'm happy with it. I don't mind going down to the beach, kiting up the hill. That's fun on its own right. So I got his gradient out and I launched. And lo and behold, his gradient is a 24, a little bigger than the death rag. So I could stay up.
Nice.
And that type of flying is magical. The reason is that you're able to go from dune top to dune top.
Yeah.
And oh, that's so cool. And another thing is, a C wing is pretty darn good performance. At least this gradient was. So it has a good speed range just on brakes. No speed bar, just brakes. So you could slow it down and then speed it up and do a pretty good dive and then swing back up, swoop onto the next rise, plant your feet on there, play king of the hill on top of the dune. Oh, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
I got an invite to go down there, and so we're supposed to go down there soon to Sand City. I keep seeing the videos, and it looks so fun. I want to go. I have to.
You will win. You will win.
I will go. So we've got a ton of people in the chat. Welcome. We have 71 people watching right now, and it's growing. Welcome, everybody. So glad that you're here. Please chime in. If you're just watching and you're not chatting, please get in the chat. Say hi. Say hi to everybody. If you have questions that you want to ask, I've got a few questions I'm going to fire off here in just a second. Welcome to the show. So I wanted to talk about one fundamental principle, and then I want to talk a little bit about theory. And the first thing that I wanted, oh, by the way, Phil took me out with a motor, and I got to fly one day with a motor, first time. Oh yeah, it was awesome. Hey, we watched the video that you did where you were on that TV show with the guy flying into the ring, where you guys analyzed that. That was so cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was also my introduction to reality TV. And reality TV is only so much reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a euphemism to call it that.
You mean it's not real?
Nope.
For example, well, you know, the occurrence is real, but like they talk about missing the ring. Well, that was actually Phil, who wasn't trying on those shots to go in the ring. He was filming.
Right.
I mean, Phil landed in the ring the first time and stopped. I landed in the ring and went through the frangible, you know, we had to make the ropes come off. Yeah. The problem is that's what I told him I would do, and that's what I did the first time. And so then Phil goes in and that was power off. I shut the power off at 300 feet and landed in the ring. And then Phil landed power on in the ring and stopped. And they said, do that. It's like, okay, well, I need that smaller wing and it'll be power on. So it was just interesting. And then all of the radio conversation that you see on that, all of it was recorded after the fact.
No.
They had me go stand off behind a vehicle and answer these. Okay, give the response of you're landing and you're high or something, whatever it was. And so that's what I did.
All right, now I have to go back and watch it again.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
And when you watch it again, when they're talking about missing the ring, look what that pilot is wearing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I had a taste of that. One of my friends, they got married on a reality show, and they were supposed to pay for their wedding and everything. Whew. You know, the wife was like, you know, I wish we hadn't have did that. It's like, wow, you know, yeah.
Yeah, it was an education.
So my first question tonight is, you've done some pretty cool flights, and I'm not talking about necessarily flying commercial aircraft, or I'm talking about just paramotoring. Maybe you brought a sandwich with you, you decided I'm going to fly from point A to point B. It's going to be a couple hours or something like that. And my question is, how do you prepare for something like that? And what are you bringing along? And then I got a couple questions about that, because I'm interested in that.
Yeah. Number one, I'm not the guy who's done the long cross countries. Okay. So where I set out and I go somewhere and I don't know where I'm going. The cross countries that I've done have mostly been supported. But in the beginning, when I got this bug and I got bit by a 4-foot bug, I would just set out in a direction and figure, you know, I'm going to make a triangle of it. And that was so cool to be able to run into the air and then fly to wherever you want, go down and check it out, and then land, and then do it again. And I had a GPS, and I had about 2.5 gallons in this thing. It was a tiny little motor. And I went to this airport, Joliet Airport. Nick Schultes is one of the first guys I got into the sport with. He was already into it. And I landed and talked to Nick for a while. And then the airport manager showed up in the distance. And it's like, uh-oh, this guy wasn't very fond of powered paragliding. So I had to launch. Yeah, exactly. I had to launch real quick. And I could see from the GPS, because as you know, it doesn't take much headwind to take a 50-minute flight and turn it into an hour and 20-minute flight. So it became pretty obvious that I wasn't going to make it back. And one of the coolest things was I'm just flying along, and I knew the engine was going to quit. And when it did, just to land kind of wherever and then stash the motor and hitchhike back to get my car. That was really cool. Really.
That is pretty rad.
Because you could say, well, that wasn't actually successful. It's like, yeah, you could say that, but it was cool in its own right. So I've done a lot of cross countries where I don't know if I've mentioned the one cross country that I did with purpose, where every time I would get an annual inspection on the helicopter, I'd fly the paramotor, or I'd fly the helicopter with the paramotor in it up to the helipad where the shop was. And then I would launch the paramotor and fly home. He would have the helicopter for hopefully only a week. And then I would fly back up to the helipad and put the paramotor in the helicopter and fly the whole kit and caboodle home. That was awesome. And I couldn't ever just fly. It's the stuff that we do with paramotor that makes it so cool. I was just talking to a guy about this. It was like, well, why is that so cool? And I know I mentioned some of this thing, but we all know how you can go down and explore. You can go run along the soccer field. And if you have a little bit of headwind, you can walk, follow the road, etc. All the things that we like to do. So I get to do that on the way up there. And that was just really amazing to be going somewhere.
Yeah.
I had another flight. So I go do that. I'm going up to get the helicopter. I have enough fuel to go up, and then I have some reserve, maybe another 30 minutes. It's about an hour flight. Well, the way I went, it was an hour. So I get up there, and he always has me, take the helicopter. Well, the helicopter had a problem. So I'm up there. It's in the evening, closer to sunset, and I cannot fly the helicopter home. Uh-oh. So I figure, well, I got about 30 minutes of fuel. I know I'm not going to make it home. Either the fuel tank is going to say land or darkness is going to say land. So I called a friend to say, hey, I tell you what, why don't I meet you about halfway? I'll call you when I'm down. And so I flew for about maybe 20 minutes. I launched from this is kind of a weird launch too, because it's Oliver's Helicopters. If you look that up on Google, you'll find it. It's a pad. There's a swamp surrounding the helipad. And I had to launch off of this. It was kind of interesting launch because it's a Fly 70, little unpowered, not very powerful motor. The motor quit. I landed beside the road, and a guy stopped and said, "Hey, are you okay?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm fine. I just ran out of gas, and I'm going to get someone to pick me up." He said, "Well, I got some gas." It's like, "Well, no, I need 2-stroke fuel." "No, I got 2-stroke fuel." "Well, I need a place to take off." I said, "I got some room in my backyard." "Okay." So I threw the motor in the back of his vehicle, and we went to his yard. Sure enough, he had about a half a gallon of gas for some of his yard equipment. And his yard was part of a neighborhood where the backyards all backed up to each other, and there was an open area. So I thanked him, and I launched, and I flew for about another 20 minutes, and then darkness intervened. And I landed at a car dealership.
Because there was lights.
Road. Yeah, because they had lights. Exactly. Now, that 30 minutes of, and so I landed this, and it was just the coolest thing to think that I just landed in the front yard of this car dealership. I don't know why that struck me as awesome. And I called Brian, he came pick me up. It was like, cool.
That is great.
Yeah. That's the thing about, there's a lot of guys who are out doing this kind of thing, but on long cross countries. And I think that's awesome, where you got to carry oil so you can get gas. That's cool.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I've walked by the gas stations, but never because I had to.
Right. Yeah. Some of these guys, like, who was it? Tucker Gott did one where he was preparing for the Icarus, and he made a couple videos, and I just thought, gosh, that is the coolest thing to think you're going to. And I really, I'm very close to getting a motor, and it's going to happen soon. I'm not sure how, but it's going to happen.
Going to the dark side.
Yeah, that's what everyone keeps saying. I'm like, what does this mean?
Once you go to the dark side, there is no coming back.
No returning.
Yes.
Yeah.
The good thing is that you can also cross over to the light side and do what we did over in Marina.
Right.
And you're out there in, paragliding heaven.
Yeah.
You know how I can tell it's going to happen? When he talks about it. Did you see that smile? Right off the rip.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's hooked. Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, by the way. Phil's a great instructor, by the way. He broke all my habits before I even got off the ground. Was yelling at me. It was great. He does a great job.
That reminds me of Eric Dufour. And I warn people that Eric Dufour is a taskmaster. He is a great instructor because he's a taskmaster. I mean, he knows this stuff. He knows how to extract the work from people. But you got to be ready for it. You're going to come out of there with like 35 flights. But if he finds you sitting there when you should be kiting, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah. I've heard about Dufour. I haven't... somebody mentioned you. I was talking to Casey, who used to have a radio show, and he said that so I'm going to have him on the show, and he's all excited. It sounds like he's going to come on.
Cool.
Caldwell, is that?
Casey Cadwell.
Cadwell. I'm stoked. So he's a local. He's got a 619 number, right? I haven't met him yet, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Great guy.
Yeah, so we're going to have him on. And name something that you won't leave the ground without having with you, something you take with you every paramotor flight, and maybe free flight too, something that you bring along.
Definitely it would be a paraglider.
Yeah, I knew you were going to have
Okay, all right. You probably assumed that. All right, that's a given. I would say the one thing I try to make sure I have is my cell phone.
Cell phone? Okay, that's a really good one. Yep.
A lot of the other stuff is secondary unless you're in an area where you might not have coverage. But and there are other things that I probably should take. But it's kind of interesting how I had a friend. We flew down. This was day before yesterday. flew down to a little airport. This was in the airplane. And we met some friends who went there on a boat. We had lunch. We headed back in the airplane. They headed back in the boat. And when I got back in the airplane, I had a text message on there that said something along the lines of, SOS, this is not a joke. We are stuck in the swamp. The serpentine belt came off the motor. So they're in the boat. Only one of the guys had cell phone coverage. And even at that, he only had text message ability. So that made me think that if you're doing cross country, you can be in, I mean, they're south of Orlando. How likely is it that you're going to be out of cell phone coverage? So if there's an area where you could be away from the ability to get home, one of those, it's EPIRB and Marines, but one of those satellite SOS devices, that might be a good idea.
Interesting. We just talked about, I was at the fly-in just recently, the Halloween fly-in here in at Palomar. I'm sure you've been to Palomar at some point. Well, I forgot to give my boys, my two older boys, I forgot to give them my second phone. I have a work phone, and I usually just leave it with them, and they play. And you know, there's barbecue, and there's usually a few people at the LZ, and I forgot, and I went and flew, and I was just having the time of my life. It was such an incredible day. Me, Russman, a couple of other guys are just finding these thermals and maxing them out, and just, it was great. And I top landed up there. I was waiting to make sure that we were going to make sure everyone's car was going to be able to get taken down, you know, that whole thing. And so I was one of the last guys to come in and land in the landing zone. And my boys came running up, Dad, where were you? And I'm like, oh, you know, I forgot to give you my phone. Sorry. And they were like, we were worried about you because, you know, everyone else came and landed. You didn't come and land. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. So then the president of the San Diego Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association comes up to me. He's like, you need to sign up for the tracker, live track 24.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it's funny because I said it in the video just before that. I said, I got to get signed up with that. And so that pushed me over there. So I'm signed up with that. If you guys go check out livetrack24.com, I believe it is, and go get signed up with the program. I use Fly Sky High. Fly Sky High app is really cool. You do have to pay for it in the beginning. It's only for Apple at this point, but they LiveTrack 24 works with all kinds of different devices. So you can set that up, and then it'll ping. You can set up your frequency and all that stuff. It's really user-friendly. You'll like it. And then we can connect. I just connected with Woody Gamertag. He's over there in, North Carolina or whatever. And I saw that he went flying, and it pinged off of his phone. And when I logged on, I couldn't fly that day. And I was like, dang it, he got to fly and I didn't, but I could tell. And it tells you duration. It gives whatever information you want it to give. So it's pretty cool. So let's talk about the evolution of the sport. We have a kind of extreme generation, and particularly the generation seems like before me has been really saturated with the whole extreme sports things. I mean, they're dirt bikes that are doing double and triple backflips. You've got guys wingsuiting inches from the terrain, and everything is like taken to the next level. Where do you see our sport evolving into, acro as being a regular thing with everyone?
Think that there's a couple of factors going on. One is we don't see the hundreds, if not thousands, of people just out there enjoying their normal flights, because that doesn't make good YouTube. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as it may seem, because the videos we see get a lot of views. And some of those things are relatively new, and they're really visual. A wingsuit flying along the ground with a guy with his arms spread out at 100 miles an hour, 2 feet above the ground, is incredibly visual. And it's visceral in what it allows us, how we can live through that. So I think there will be the majority of us doing like what skiers do. Very few skiers of the many, many thousands are doing super extreme skiing. They're just out there on the hill every day. So there's going to be a part of the sport that goes that way. It'll always be a small part. I think it's just humans don't want to die. Not very many people are that good at it. Really, you got to be pretty good at it. You got to have a real kinetic feel, a sense for the wing, and a strong desire, and that combination doesn't come easily. So I think that the sport, for the most part, will progress in a fairly slow way towards becoming a little bit easier. The lightweight wings have done that, a little bit more fun. And most of the growth will be in the mundane stuff that we all like to do, with the visual people getting the most airtime, which is cool. I love to watch them too.
Yeah. Yeah. When the first wingsuit videos came out, I was completely attached, like every second. I think I watched that same first video with that same song that gets stuck in your head. Down, 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 down. I mean, it was just, oh
Yeah.
gosh, look, he's gonna die. Oh, and then he just lands at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
if only my kahunas were a little bit bigger. Yeah. God, I would love to do that.
They can't be too big though, because they'll hit the ground. Because they're only.
That's true.
Gotta be careful. Oh man. So we're at the halfway mark. Just want to do a quick plug. Para Orange Products. If you're interested in getting some stuff, go to paraorangeproducts.com. You can talk to Larry. He's actually very quiet tonight, but he's on the show. Larry has a funny story. Him and Chris were at a fly-in, and he was sharing with me at the pre-show. Larry, Jeff, Larry.
We know each other.
Yeah,
Jeff, I'm gonna go back to a fly-in. I think it was in Palm Bay this year.
Oh yeah.
And next to us was another booth with Chad and Don Jordan. And you walked over to the bag lady, Chris, and you said, "Oh, nice windsocks." And she said, "They're the best." And you said, and she really didn't know who you were. And I was standing in the corner with, I think Bob Curry was there. And you said, "I want a windsock I can put in my yard that lasts forever." And she said, "Well, sir, these are low velocity windsocks and you just can't leave them out all the time." And you said, "No, I want a sock that lasts forever." And then you moved over and started talking with Chad and Don. And Chris said to me, "Honey, I read it in the book, in the Bible. It says that they don't last forever." She goes, "It's in the book." I said, "Chris, he wrote the book."
Oh, that's all right.
And you said to Chris, and you turned to her and said, "I knew you were trouble." I don't know if you recall that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that fly-in, by the way, it's not on the calendar yet, but it will be happening in March next year, I think on the 16th. It's not going to be run by the Palm Bay Police Group, but Eric DeFore and I think Don Jordan are going to be putting it on.
Well, we'll be there. That's one of the few that we do attend.
Yeah,
we do
I'll
attend.
be there.
Yeah. So it was quite funny when she said, but it's in that book.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
She knows the page and everything.
Oh, that's funny. God, how cool.
So some good news, Robert, I wanted to share.
Yeah,
we
please.
received a letter, an email. Letter shows my age. We received an email from Adam Sweeney, who was our first winner, the first bag we gave away, with a ton of photographs. And I don't know if Adam's on tonight. Adam Sweeney. But we are going to post those photos on our website. We are in the middle of updating our website because, as you know, we sell wings now. So we're going through a big transformation with the website. We're not just doing a click here and go to the wing manufacturer's website. We're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to have prices there and the deals we're doing and everything are going to be right on the website. So it's been quite a lot of work. But I'm glad that he did send that to us. The photos are great. Unfortunately, as he said in his email, it's been terrible weather in the UK, so he hasn't been flying much, but he's been playing with his bag and stuff and his wing in it. So we'll get those posted. Did want to mention a product that we announced maybe 2 weeks ago, a knee board. We talked about knee boards, a new product we came out with. And, you know, we always say we listen to what pilots tell us. And we did very well. We want to thank the people that watch the show and their friends for ordering our knee board. We received an email that was interesting from a foot launcher who said, he wrote it to the bag lady. I'm sure she doesn't appreciate getting "Dear Bag Lady." And he said, I love the product, but when I was running, even though you have the non-skid stuff, the knee board was slipping down my leg. I found it to be uncomfortable. So what we did is we redesigned one for foot launch pilots with a strap that can go onto the loop of your pants. So the board will not slip down anymore. Like that. So we do listen when we get, you know, the phrase we use around here is our pilots. When our pilots tell us something, we sit down, we take it back to the table, and we come up with a solution. So this is being offered in 2 flavors now for foot launch, and it's got a ring, and it's got an adjustable strap. And we still make the regular one. And something I did the other day, I was going up Thursday morning, and I broke my my holder for my iPhone. And I said, where am I going to put my iPhone? And I put it in my knee board.
That's pretty cool. That's a good way to tell how big it is.
Yeah. So another use for it, I always keep, you know, my airport stuff. Like I was flying out of Brooksville a couple of weeks ago. Jeff, I'm sure you know where that is. But good idea is you can put your iPhone in the bag, in the knee board. So nice. We want to appreciate. I think his name was Chris. I forgot his last name. Who sent the email about slipping down? And of course, we sent Chris an knee board with the strap on it. But we do listen and we do read those emails that come in. And I guess the biggest question everybody's asking, when are the foot launch bags coming out, the covers for transporting? We're coming out with and it's been a lot of work. We still don't have it finalized yet, but we are going to be coming out with the cover. We have a lot of foot launch pilots that put their machines in the back of their pickups or on the decks behind their Jeeps, and they get wet and dusty. And we've narrowed it down to one particular design. We narrowed it down to 2 materials, and we're still not there yet, but that's going to be coming out, and it's going to be waterproof, and it's going to meet all the requirements that everybody's been asking for. So that's still on the board, and we're working on that, you know, as much as we can. So those are the 2 changes this week. You will see on our website within the next, I hope by the end of next week or before, we will have our wings listed on there. We do sell now Para wings. And as I told the bag lady, now I need to order 3 or 4. So we have to have some test wings.
Better have them on deck.
Yeah, well, she has her, you know, she knows me. She goes, you just want them for yourself. I said, no, we have to have them. We just have to have those.
You want to use them.
I won't use them. Anyway, Jeff, so the bag lady says hello.
Hello to the bag lady.
She never comes on. We need her to come on. Tell her to come on the camera sometime.
I'm going to bring a photograph of her on. That's
yeah. Just put her next to you. That's great. Well, I have a couple questions from the chat. 2 very good questions. One, where are you from originally, Jeff?
Ohio.
Central
Ohio. Yeah.
What part?
The north central Ohio, Mansfield, Ohio.
Okay. I've been to Ohio. I went to Cedar Point when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
That was it, though. That's all I know about
Yeah.
Ohio.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good flying. If you go west of Mansfield, you wind up in the flatland. If you go east of Mansfield, southeast, and in Mansfield, it's hilly.
Interesting.
One of the real cool things that I did after I got into paramotor was I went back home and I flew the paramotor around all of my childhood haunts.
Nice.
Everybody needs to do that once.
That's a good idea. They used to fly right by my house, free flight with hang gliders. And I used to watch them. And I told Phil the other day that I was really fascinated with flying ever since I saw those guys flying around. So South Mountain, you're familiar with in Phoenix, Arizona, South Mountain Preserve.
That's the one from.
Have you really? Nice. Yeah, I want to fly there. And then there's one. I don't think it's in airspace, but they stopped flying there for whatever reason. I'm going to make that a goal. I got to write that down. I'm going to check the airspace there and see if I can fly the mountain by my house, even if I just go land at the bottom. Check. So the other question was, and these were both questions from Tom. I don't want to say his last name wrong. Kubat, Kubat. He has a great channel, by the way. If you sneak into his YouTube, he's got some great videos. He takes his time, you could tell, and they're fun to watch. He asked, where do you see the evolution of, what was it? The politics of the I want to read it right from the chat. Excuse me just one second while I find it. I know Tom's he's in Chicago. He thought you were from Chicago. Okay, he said,
I lived in Chicago for 20-something years, so.
You did?
I did. When you look up that helicopter place, it's in Northwest Chicago. I have an interesting engine failure story in the helicopter, but I'll spare you that for now.
Wait, you can't do that. You can't just do that. You can't just do that. Okay. We got how many people are watching right now? 76 people are watching right now. They're going to want to know.
The Reader's Digest version. So I'm flying the helicopter up there to get some other maintenance done, not related to an engine problem. And I hear the most god-awful noise you could ever want to hear coming from behind you when you are in a mechanical device. I was probably at 700 feet. And I decided when I looked at my gauge that showed the rotor was going the wrong way that, okay, I'm done. So I rolled off the engine, put the collector to the floor, and turned it into the wind. I saw a cornfield. I thought, okay, I'm going to live. When you dump the collective in a helicopter, you have a moment of almost free fall because you're essentially dumping all the lift from it, so that now instead of the helicopter's blades pushing the air down, the air is pushing them to rotate. It becomes basically a gyrocopter. And in that transition, it's weightless for a moment, and then you get back to 1G, and now you're a glider. Ooh. So at that point, you're just a glider. It's not that bad. You've only got about 15 seconds. I was headed for the corn, and I figured, okay, I'm going to live. Because I can land it in corn. It won't go well for the helicopter, I'm sure, but at that point you don't care. And a few more seconds later, I found a clearing with grass, the really tall grass, due to irrigation problems. So this is where water would gather. Corn wouldn't grow, but the grass would. So I just steered a little bit towards that, did the flare, and landed. Nothing damaged. So I'm sitting there with the remnants of my engine making this still god-awful noise at idle. And I think, wow, I survived my first engine failure. My next thought was, cool, I didn't damage anything. And then my last thought was, ooh, this is going to be expensive.
I can get it out of there.
And then a little side note was I got out of the helicopter, and here I am.
Hold on a second. This is your helicopter?
Yeah. This is that helicopter that I fly, back and forth.
Yeah.
And So I got out of the helicopter. I had a GPS at the time. It was the Garmin 95. This was in the beginning of GPS. They weren't very accurate because the military kept the best to themselves. And I looked around, and here I am, basically in the Chicago suburbs. And I couldn't see a single telephone pole, a house, a fence, a line. I knew where I was, so it wasn't like I was worried. It was just weird. Like, really? I'm in the middle of a cornfield and I don't see any sign of civilization. And I know I need to walk that way and I'll find railroad tracks, and that's what I did. And then I called Daryl. Daryl was the guy that did the maintenance. Hey, Daryl.
Daryl, you're in trouble.
I'm going to be late and I won't have the helicopter. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So anyway, that was the helicopter story.
What was it?
Well, the first thing that happened was a piston, the piston ring, not the piston ring, but the bottom part of a piston broke. And that started shedding parts into the engine, which caused more shedding of parts. And so the engine was done, obviously. So the engine went to Poplar Aeromotive, which is a well-known repair shop just on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. I went up there, and this is not something you want to hear. I said, "Oh, you're the guy with the helicopter engine. Boy, do I got something to show you." I said, "You didn't have metal shavings in that engine. You had metal chunks." So they wouldn't even give me core credit for what was left of that Lycoming. Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah. Oops. So when you break a prop, just be thankful it's not a helicopter.
Yeah. Or a helicopter prop. If you're
right, exactly.
Woo. Yeah, so Tom's question was the site preservation. So let me just, I'll read it verbatim because I think it's good. He's curious to know if Jeff is concerned with the future of the sport with regards to regulation and LZ preservation.
LZ preservation, absolutely. Regulation, we're going to have to bring that upon us, and it's going to take a fair amount. The FAA doesn't want anything to do with us. Powerfully, they don't want anything to do with us. We now have the tandem exemption for wheel launch. It's ours to lose. That's an extraordinarily powerful tool for paramotor training. And I hope that we can respect it, treat it in a way that won't get it lost, because the way that we'll lose it is for politicians to push for change. So let's not give them reason. And that, I think, would probably take something like running into an airliner, running into a business jet, running into someone who's well connected, or bringing some other really unwanted attention. It would take that, because they really don't want to regulate us. It's interesting how interwoven ultralights have become in the national airspace system. I was reading a really exciting document. This was a real page turner. It was an an advisory circular relating to airports, and there's guidance for ultralights. So it's really pretty tightly interwoven. Somebody had asked me a question. It's like, well, I'm not really sure about that. So I looked it up. As far as sites, we're going to lose sites. There's no way around it. We're going to lose them for various purposes first. Then we'll lose them in general. The most sensitive sites will go first. It will be up to local groups to figure ways to work with the neighbors. The neighbors may be the community. I don't want to ever force anybody to do anything with ratings, but what I do want to do is have it be available. If a community says, hey, we need to have some way of knowing these pilots have some training, ratings are one way to do it. You don't go to the community and say, hey, we have these, we need to have these. But if they say, we're not going to let you fly there because it's unregulated and we don't know if anybody has any qualification, well, here's a tool you can use it for. That was one of the reasons that I was motivated to do ratings, because they can be used for that purpose, for site preservation. A guy in Southeast Florida did just that when he was facing the loss of his sight. And private sites, they'll go away for the same reason that any private site goes away. The landowner's afraid of getting sued, or he gets complaints from his neighbors. Beaches. I mean, if you launch and fly at a beach for a long time, or you get several people launching from that beach and fly, even if you're not obnoxious, just the fact that you're there a lot, it's going to put wear on it. People are going to start to complain. We all know about that. Once is a novelty, twice is cool, 3 times is like, yeah, okay, I've seen that before. 4th time is you're like a gnat. It's just the way it is. So I think that thankfully private people come along and they get into the sport and find it to be really cool, and they offer up their properties. We have a lot of sites owing to that, and I don't think that'll go away. Insurance is an interesting thing. If you don't have insurance, you still get sites. There are some sites that are out of your reach because there is no insurance. But it's something to at least consider. Well, do we want to get insurance at any price and introduce that now and make it really expensive? Or do we want this to be status quo where there is no insurance, essentially? There is insurance, actually. It's about $300 a year for individual pilots. But insurance for instructors is really hard to get. So, you know, the organization doesn't have insurance for members right now. And I have question about whether or not it's the way to go. There's pluses and minuses.
That's it. I mean, you're going to call up, State Farm and be like, hey, I want to fly around on this. Some people call it a butt fan. It's basically a helicopter on your back. And, we're going to take this tablecloth. Can you insure me?
Yeah, I'm going to strap a couple of gallons onto my back. It's right below the exhaust of a 2-stroke engine.
No,
is that
but
okay?
Jeff, not to interrupt, Jeff, there is an insurance company out there that does write policies. I had their insurance last year.
No
First Flight.
Kidding.
Yeah, First Flight.
Yeah,
right.
I had First Flight. Yeah,
right. If you have
and the only reason I needed it, truthfully, was because I was renting tie-down space at a particular airport that required us to have insurance.
Yes, and if you have a P2 rating, you can get insurance from First Flight.
You can get, and it's not very expensive. I think it was somewhere around $400 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is funny.
Then again, I am not fortunate enough to fly a foot launch. I fly a wheeled machine where I need some space to launch and land. But I don't really fly in that airport much anymore.
Yeah.
I have a gallon of gas strapped to my back with
Never mind the big spinny thing.
Never mind the prop.
But I do have to say, if you follow Jeff's videos and read his books, he talks about, in the case of, I'm going to use one airport in particular, Brooksville, which, Jeff, you've probably flown in there, general aviation. When I wanted to fly out of there, because it's 20 minutes from my home, I did exactly what you say in your documents. I called the chief at the tower, made an appointment, went out there, brought my machine. He wanted to see my radio. I explained what we did. The most ironic thing was I knew more about FAR 103 than he did.
Absolutely.
And he said, would you mind showing us how this thing flies? He had no concept.
I knew it.
I did it. Yeah.
He's like, let me try this thing. Let me just see if this thing works.
And I did a test flight. I had to do a test flight for them. I had to show them how the wing inflated. He was like, there's a wing in that bag? I said, yeah, there's a wing in that bag. But you know what? It became a very, I don't like flying there only because they make me use the old shutdown runway, and I don't like using a paved runway. But they allow me to fly there whenever I want. I just call them up and say, I'm going to come out with a couple of friends, and we have to use radios naturally. They just don't understand that when we take off, we're not going to talk for a few minutes, and they're just chatty Cathy's over there. Yeah, and they call us gliders. Glider 1, can you hear me? But,
so you're on airband then?
Yeah, I always carry an airband radio.
Jeff, you fly with airband?
Not unless I'm flying from controlled field.
That's
but I don't fly.
Field.
Yeah, and I haven't done that in a lot of years. It was fun because I landed on I think it's a 75-foot runway that was 6,000 feet long. And when they clear you for the option, that means you can land and stop or do a low pass or do a touch and go. So I did a literal touch and go, and that was really cool.
That is super cool. We got a couple cool shows coming up. One is going to be next week's show is going to be with Kinga Mastarles. I'm probably butchering her last name, but she got accepted into the Red Bull X Alps 2019. First female. There's actually 2 females that are going to be competing this year in the X Alps. Thought that was interesting. So I actually reached out to her long before she was famous, for the record. And she had broke some local records. Anyway, she's going to come on the show. She's excited. She's a little bit nervous because her English isn't perfect, she says, but I think she does fine. And her videos are in English, and they're just really fun to watch. And she's very passionate about free flight. So she's going to be on next week. That's going to be a great show. We're also going to have at some point we're going to have Casey Cadwell. Casey's going to come on. He's a local and one of the people that people have recommended. Actually, Jeff Goin gets the record for people saying this is who you need to have on the show. And so I hope I'm fulfilling everyone's desires, because I haven't. I was going through my notes from the beginning, from the very first show, and every show I write down somebody's idea of who I should have on or some topic or something, and I have your name written like 4 times before I finally reached out to you. I'm like, okay, finally, I need to find the guy, this Jeff Goin guy. Love it. So I do want to encourage everyone, go to paraglidingtalk.com, check out what's happening with the upcoming shows, and go back and watch some of the older shows. You can find all kinds of good stuff. You're not going to be able to obviously listen to every single one of them. And but if you're on a road trip or something like that, put it on, listen to it, learn something, advance your skills. My idea of flying is that you should always be getting better than you were the last time you flew. You should always be advancing just a little bit. And it's okay if you stay the same, just don't go backwards at all. Don't get loose with your pre-flight checks and your gear and making sure that you have everything. What we're doing is not a joke, although we have a good time talking about and enjoy it, but everything that we're doing this is aviation. And although it's the very basics, I personally think it is the purest of aviation, especially free flight paragliding. So know what you're doing, get a hold of an instructor, get somebody that is in the sport for a long time, and follow them and be better than you were the day before. That leads me to say, go check out the Patreon, support the show financially if you can do it. And we'd love to have you. And if you're interested in moderating, helping out with the show and advancing the show, you can moderate. I just need to get your email. There's a form that you can fill out on the website. And I'd love to have you on the show as moderator. And that's pretty much all we have for the show. We're at that 1 hour mark. I do want to just give a quick, is there anybody that, is there any questions that I missed, Sean, that stand out to you?
I think you addressed all. Yeah, there was a couple of them, but our guest knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Well, he's got it going on.
He knows a thing or two about flying, Yeah. By the way, are you coming down here, Jeff?
I am. Yeah, we got the motorhome is in Los Angeles right now.
Well, that's close.
Yeah, it's working its way. And then hopefully the next segment will be San Diego and then a little Mexico trip.
Nice. Did you let Russman know?
Oh, yeah. In fact, he's going to put it together. He doesn't necessarily know that yet, but
he hasn't told me. He probably doesn't want me to go.
oh no, I'm sure he would love for you to go.
I'll find a way.
I look forward to that.
I tell Russman, I'll be like, "What are you doing, Russman?" He's like, "Oh well, I'm gonna go."
That's a great Russman right there.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, I joke around and I tell him, I think you're my dad, and he always looks at me like, no, he wasn't teaching, and I kind of made him teach me in a way, and I kind of feel bad sometimes where I'm like, he was like, this guy's just gonna go and die if I don't teach him. I have to teach him, so I would just follow him around. I'd be like, where are you gonna go? Oh, I'm going to go to Little Black. Okay, I'm going to go to Little Black too. What time?
Oh, that's great.
It's horrible. But we have a great time.
Well, he's been stopping instructing for the last 15 years. I'm going to stop instructing the last 15 years. Yeah, I'm cutting it out. You cut it out yet, Phil? Yeah, no, I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to stop all that.
He's so passionate. I love it. He is built to teach.
Yep.
What a great guy. We should, maybe we're out of time tonight, but maybe next time we'll give him a crank call and see if we can harass him on the air. That'll be fun. Okay, guys. Well, I really appreciate everyone coming, and what a great show. You guys are awesome.
It was a pleasure.
90 people watching. Jeff, you are the man. And so I want to do it again. We'll keep it rolling. I'll keep you posted. Let's hang out and you're welcome to plug in to my power source in my garage here. If you want to pull the RV out front, totally welcome to. So you got a place, at least one place.
Thank you.
I'm close to Blossom, so that's fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to have a short after show. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. You guys have a great night. And if I don't see you on the air, see you in there.